Alright, hi guys, this is St. Vicious, and this is going to be the League of Legends patch 4.4 rundown. Um, it's actually a pretty long one, and there's a lot of weird reworks and changes and stuff, so this one's going to take a little while. Alright, so let's start it off with the Kassadin changes, which I think are a little unusual, I guess, because I think I see like the goal that Riot's going with, and what they're like trying to do with Kassadin. They're kind of trying to make him, I guess, more of a disruptor rather than an assassin. Uh, but I think how this is going to end up is people are going to start building Kassadin as I guess almost a bruiser with a gap closer, like almost like the Armax Kha'Zix. Because the way I see it is, here, actually, I'll go over his abilities first, and then I'll get my thoughts on it. All right, Kassadin, his passive now additionally ignores unit collision. Big whoop, who cares about that? And then the attack speed bonus got removed, so now you're not going to see like 9 million attack speed Kassadin after he absorbs a spell, so that's going to be gone. So it's actually a pretty big auto attack damage nerf. Then Null Spear now additionally grants Kassadin a shield for 1.5 seconds that shields X amount of magic damage, so this shield only absorbs magic damage, and it's really not that much, but it's still a shield nonetheless. It's 160, so like, what is that really going to mean once you're like, imagine you're trying to shield a level 9 magic damage spell. Like, maybe it'll be able to absorb a stun or something like that, or the damage from the stun, but it's not going to like absorb any like abilities. Yeah, this is actually like a really ghetto version of Morgana shield. The more I look at it, it just absorbs damage and it doesn't really make you immune to the effects or anything like that. And then on top of that, they took the silence away from Kassadin's Q, and now all it does is interrupt channel effects. So you interrupt maybe like Fiddlestick Salt or his W or something like that. There's not really that many champions right now that have a lot of channel effects that are being played right now. And then they also nerfed the damage by 20 at max rank. So Kassadin's Q pretty much got butchered from what it looks like as far as damage and CC standpoint, but now you get 160 shield worth. Probably not. And then they have what? His W, Kassadin's basic attacks draw energy from Void, deal 20 extra auto attack damage. So that's not really that much in the grand scheme of things. I mean, maybe at level 1 if you're auto trading, or like low levels if you're auto trading with Kassadin, it's going to be a big deal. But in the late games, that's not going to be much. And then on top of that, it has the active, which at max rank is 140 damage, which is not too much, but it will restore 8% of his missing mana, and it'll give you an additional 40% mana if you hit a champion. So I think that's going to be just, his W is mainly going to be for like a little bit of extra punch, and it's going to be to, I guess, sustain his mana cost because, yeah, Kassadin just has mana problems with his ultimate. Then they have Force Pulse. Pretty much gutted the damage on that too. Like, they took 60 damage off the max rank. Like, that is pretty big damage nerf. Taking 60 damage off the max rank is something, especially an AoE spell. So Force Pulse, outside of the slow, pretty much non-existent on the damage anymore, outside of like stacking mad AP. And then Rift Walk, now it does 2% of your maximum mana. So I think, actually, yeah, I'll talk about that in a second. 1 second. I'll go over the rest of the abilities. So and they have stacking damage is now 40, 50, 60, and plus 1% of your maximum mana per stack. They also like took the AP ratio off of that, and then they lowered the earlier damage values on it. And then Riftwalk stacks now doubles its mana cost per stack rather than costing 100 more, so you can stack up the mana cost on it pretty big, pretty fast. And then no longer refunds the mana on hitting an enemy champion. I think that's just to coincide with the mana that you get back from the W. And then now the cooldown on it at max rank is 3 seconds, down from 5, which I think is like the one redeeming quality of this whole Kassadin change is the fact that you have a 3-second Rift Walk at max rank. And if you get CDR, you are going to have like a 1.6 seconds? I'm terrible at math. Something along those lines. Cooldown on his jump. You can just imagine a Kassadin with like a 1.5 to 2 second cooldown Rift Walk. Like, he's going to be all over the damn place. Alright, so picture this. This is the way I see Kassadin meant to be played after all these changes and after like going over all his abilities. I think how you're supposed to build Kassadin is I think he could be a jungler just by looking at his how his kit works now. Um, and then B, because like I'm trying to think where he would be able to lane. He's not gonna be able to lane that many places, so he's probably gonna be a jungler, or he's gonna probably be like a counter pick or something along those lines. And then B, I don't think he's meant to be an assassin anymore. I think he's meant to be a tank. Like he's supposed to just go in and just be annoying as shit in a team fight and AoE slow over and over and over again with his Force Pulse, and then just Rift Walk on you continuously. And he's supposed to get off as many Rift Walk rotations as you can possibly get in a team fight. Because his cooldown on it is so short. You're going to be able to AoE slow a lot of people in team fights, and you're going to be able to get around very easily with low cooldown and high CDR. So I think items like a Frozen Heart, you could definitely see that coming in, or maybe even a Frozen Fist, who knows? It depends on the route you want to go. Like Frozen Fist gives a little bit more mana than Frozen Heart, but it doesn't give as much CDR. And I think you're going to see like Sunfire Cassidans and just like full tank CDR, high mana stat Cassidin builds. Tier will probably still be a core item on him, but you'll probably see like tier into like full tank builds or something. And your goal with Cassidin is just going to be to jump on people, be as tanky as possible, and then just to permanently slow them and just absorb as much damage as possible. Uh, I'm not entirely sure how well he's going to do in a laning phase, or even like how he's going to do in jungle. Like I've seen a couple videos of the new Cassidin rework jungling, and it seemed like it was okay, but I would have to experiment with it more. Um, but for now, that's how I view Cassidin going out in the late game and the mid game. So we'll see about that. I think Cassidin is going to be, I want to say situationally good, but I have to see about his laning phase. All right, who we got next? We got Annie, and this is basically the rework that should have been done to Annie a long time ago, right when she became popular. So it took them a couple months to do this, but they nerfed the base values and base damages on Annie's abilities, and then they upped the AP ratio. And what this does is this makes it to where support Annie does less damage because you're not gonna like have a million AP on her, um, or actually not a million AP. You're not gonna have like a really high base damage and then like the AP from like the tome or whatever else or runes that you have on top of it. So like in order to get like really high damage on Annie, you're gonna have to be mid lane. You're gonna have to be farm. You're gonna have to be getting like death cap and like actual AP items. But whereas support Annie with the lower base damages won't be as strong as she is right now. Like I'll go into a game and Annie will get a DFG and just like one shot me, and that'll be her only item, and I'll have a ton of magic with this. But with the lower base damages on Annie, she's not going to be doing quite as much damage because support Annie will get her AP items a lot later in the game than a mid lane Annie will be. So mid lane Annie will be pretty much just as strong as long as she's farming fine and getting her items at the right time. But support but support Annie will be a little bit weaker. Who we got next? We got Diana. They just upped the ability power ratio to go along with the Lich Bane nerfs. Not really sure. Like this isn't really like a buff to Diana. This is more of like a side thing, since like Lich Bane's so popular in her. Not really what Diana needs. She still needs some work. So this change is kind of irrelevant to her. These are really big changes to Elise. Elise got, I don't want to say gutted, but they really hurt a lot of the things that make Elise, I guess, overpowered. They lowered the base damage on her neurotoxin by Q, or neurotoxin by 20 on her Q, and then they also lowered the maximum damage it does to monsters. They literally cut it in half. That's really huge. So what this does is this really hurts her clear speed, and it's gonna make her. I don't have like exact timers or anything like that about what it's gonna do to her clear speed because I haven't done the runs yet, but it's going to be meaning that Elise can't get on the map as early as possible. And on top of this, it also hurts her Dragon ability and her Baron ability. Like, there's points where I will two-man Baron with Elise or solo Dragon on points where no other champion could do that. And I think they really needed to nerf that on her. And I'm glad they took this route with her because Elise just has too many things that make her strong. And this is just kind of like putting her more in line with what other junglers can do. Because there's not that many junglers that can clear buffs and do dragons and do barons as effectively as Elise. And then also in the Spider farm, the Venomous Bite, they lowered the base damage by 40. And then, of course, they did the same thing where they lowered the execute damage on minions by 150. So, once again, going to hurt her jungle clear speed and also going to hurt her burst against people. So she's not going to be like one-shotting people in the early game, I think. Um, Actually, not early game, but mid game rather, because the lower values on it are pretty much the same. But as you get later into levels, that's when the damage is gonna show. Um, Really big change to the cocoon. They lowered the stun duration down to 1 second, and anybody who plays Elise, they know that you don't max cocoon first, you don't max E first. So for the majority of the game, you're not gonna have that 1.5 second stun. You're gonna have a 1 second stun. So until like you reach to the later levels, that stun that nerf is going to hurt you pretty bad. In the later levels, of course, it's going to be better because it's a 2 second stun. But I think the fact that you're not going to be able to snowball as hard with that 1.5 second stun is going to really, really, really hurt Elise. Uh, I think on top of all the other nerfs, I think Elise will still be viable, but I think that like these three nerfs together like really hurt her, and I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure if I'll still play her. I'll probably still play her, but she won't be like a top pick for me. Then of course they did a repel change, which doesn't really matter because you only repel like once in a team fight half the time anyways, unless you have max CDR. And then they increased the health of the spiderlings, which is like who cares about that? And then Ezreal, they I guess buffed Mystic Shot's AP ratio since they nerfed Lich Bane. Not that many people really even play Ezreal, so that's whatever. Or not, I mean, not that many people play AP Ezreal, yeah. And then Fizz, same thing with the Lich Bane change. They upped the AP ratio on the W. And that's mainly just to make up for the Lich Bane damage loss. Heimerdinger, now you spawn with maximum ammo count. So you don't have to wait for it to wind up if you're trying to defend your base, or like if you get home guards and you're trying to defend from a last push, you're actually going to have some turrets now. And now they increased the turret health scaling with a little bit more ability power ratio. So I think late game it's going to end up being maybe like 200 extra health on a turret, something like that if I did the math right. They're still probably going to die pretty fast, so that's not that big a deal. And then the beams on the turrets now no longer affected by CDR, and they just the beam cooldown goes down by auto attacking. So I think that's overall nerf, depending on how much the cooldown gets lowered by each auto attack. Oh, I mean it's 5%, I guess. Yeah, that's probably a pretty big nerf. Let's see. Turret AI is now less reliable at last hitting minions, unless Heimer himself has ordered the turret by attacking that minion. Great, just so we need worse turret AI. So Kog'Maw now. Okay, these are some interesting changes with Kog'Maw, and I actually feel like it's what Kog'Maw needed to bring him back into the meta. Because what happens with Kog'Maw is if you're pre-6 and you get zoned off the creep line, or like you get fucked early by getting hooked, or like you don't have your flash up, it is really damn hard to farm. Like if they freeze a lane on you, you are fucked. Like that lane is done. Like you better like pucker up your butthole because you're gonna get fucked. So now he has this 1,000 range Q that he can just launch at minions and try to last hit with that. Depending on the cooldown of it, you're going to be able to get a couple more last hits and a couple more CS, and on top of that, it's also going to give you a little bit better harass in lane if you are trading. And then it makes his late game even better too, because it gives 28% armor shred. So if you're attacking a target that has 100 armor, it's going to shred for more, of course, more than it does now. So I think Kog'Maw's meant to be a tank buster, and this just helps him wreck tank line even faster. So goes with like the Kog'Maw late game god thing. So whatever. And then the base damage on it got increased by 20. Who cares about that? I don't really care about that. That's not going to do anything. And then the ability power ratio got lowered. So nerf to AP Cog. Nobody even really plays AP Cog anymore, just because the nerf to his ultimate a long time ago was a little much, and his ramp up time's pretty long. And then they made the W now no longer have a mana cost, which I think is really huge, because now you're going to have more opportunities to use your W for farming or your W for harassing without having to worry so much about mana. Now you can invest your mana into Caustic Spittle and use that for zoning and harassing, rather than using your mana on Bioarcane Barrage to harass. Nothing really changed the ultimate. Nautilus changed. So now they made, at level 1, the W's cooldown is 18 seconds, which is pretty damn long, 18 seconds. And then the bonus health ratio is 15%. These are not, like, these are okay changes for Nautilus, but this is not the reason why, there's a phone ringing, but yeah, this is not the reason why Nautilus is not played. Nautilus is not played because, let's say I go top to fight a Renekton, right? And let's say we have like a Jax or a Shyvana or any of that junk. and I get into the fight, and their jungler shows up, that Lee Sin. All he has to do is kick me one time, and it will drop my shield off. It'll drop my W off. And guess what? I've been maxing my W out. So that's where all my damage comes from. So if you can completely negate all my damage by hitting me once, then it makes my champion useless. So I think what they needed to do to make Nautilus viable is they need to make it to where when his shield drops, you still get half of the damage value on it. So let's say, I can't remember what the damage values are. Let's say level max rank W does like what, 100 extra damage per auto. If your shield falls, you need to be doing 50 extra damage for an auto. And this way, it'll make Nautilus able to fight when his shield's down, and he'll actually be relevant in team fights. Because right now, when your shield's down in Nautilus, you do no damage, and you are like the most useless piece of crap ever. Like it's pretty ugly to watch. So I don't know. I think that will help his jungle speed if they did that, and it'll also help his scrapping potential. But this change will be okay for clearing and all that nonsense, but it's just not what he needs. Sivir, they just messed around with the Boomerang Blade. Damage loss per enemy hit is now 15% from 10%. This is just because Sivir, if she hits you with the Boomerang Blade, just like wrecks you in team fights. Like there was like one team fight with the IEM games where she hit like a 4-man Boomerang Blade and it just like chunked their whole team out and they ended up winning the team fight off of it. So yeah, I think that's just to nerf really good Boomerang Blades. And then Ricochet now costs more mana. I think that's warranted. Like Sivir just pushes way too fast with the Ricochet and Boomerang Blade combo. So it's a pretty good change for that. She's going to have like more mana problems. And then also now her E gives more mana back if you absorb a spell. So I think they want to make up for... They want more counterplay with Spell Shield. You have to Spell Shield properly now to maintain your mana. They sped up and increased the width on Skarner's E. Not the change I think he needed, but it'll help. Like right now on the current patch, if I hit a Skarner E at max range, I'm like, damn, I'm a sniper. Like, oh, like I'm so good at this game. Like I just hit this 1,000 range, slow as shit. Skarner E. It's so slow. It feels bad. Yeah. The spell just doesn't feel good. It's not like a sizable enough missile. Like it's not like I'm throwing this out, it's gonna hit you. Like damn, gotcha. It's just like I really hope this hits. Like it's this tiny little thing traveling really slow at you. I mean, it's still not that drastic of a change as a 10 missile width increase and then 100 missile speed increase, but who knows? Maybe it'll be a little bit easier to hit now. They changed the soul despawn rate by a little while, and this just makes it to where when you're playing Thresh, you actually have to walk up and get the souls rather than let them sit there and like scrap it out with people. Whatever, that's just going to make it to more opportunities where you can kill Thresh. Using Rapid Fire is now a timing opportunity. So they took the mana cost off Rapid Fire, like Big Whoop. I think this is to make it to where, right now, Trist, yeah, I guess he does have a couple, or she has a couple mana issues when she's doing her all-ins, and this is just going to help out with that. And also, like, it'll allow her to maybe farm under turret a little bit better, or to push turrets better. Just having a little bit lower mana cost on that. I mean, 50 mana is not that much, but it's enough. And then, of course, they raised Twisted Fate's ability power ratio on his W and E, and that's just to go along with the Lich Bane changes, because Twisted Fate is pretty much like, he is the Lich Bane champion. It's like, that's his signature, is like the Lich Bane. It's like, damn, this guy's taking our towers. So that's just to go along with that. They lowered the damage on Vi's Vault Breaker. I think this is warranted because, like, yeah, like Vi will just, even before she has items, if she rushes like Ancient Golem or something like that, I think Tank Vi does too much damage with Qmax. So what they did is they made it to where it has a higher AD ratio, but it has a lower base damage, which I think is good. You need to make the decision with Vi whether you're going to be a damage Vi or whether you're going to be a disruptor Vi. And that's just more go along with that. And then on top of that, they increased the cooldown of Assault and Battery and then lowered the secondary target impact, which is just going to make it to where Vi can't make so many plays early game. And yeah, because Vi ult early game is just so brutal. Like if you get hit by a Vi ult in early game and they have follow-up CC, you're dead. So it's just to like tone that down a little bit. And then these are all just like little minor changes on these. Fixed by cost. Where's the one I was looking for? Not the Yorick ones. Here's, of course, the Lich Bane change where they made it to where they took the base damage off it to the 50, and then they also lowered the ability power ratio on it by 0.25. really huge nerf to late game Lich Bane. But I agree, like late game Lich Bane is just some of the dumbest things ever. Like you get hit by like a TF that is like 600 AP and he Lich Bane auto, he's just like, you just get one shot. And you're like, what the fuck just happened? So I think that's just a toned down late game AP carries. Like Lich Bane is way too strong of a late game item on AP carries right now. This is a big change. The trinkets, warding totems, and sweeping lens and scrying orbs all have 30 seconds longer before you can activate them. And what I think this is going to do, this is going to make level 1 delayed invades a lot more prevalent. Because what people can do is they can, let's say I'm in a competitive match. What I could do is I could go in and we could 5-man invade your blue, if we're blue side, and then we could ward your blue, and then you could just have people sitting on the other side of the map, like 3 people waiting to delay invade your red. Because what's going to happen is I'm gonna ward your blue, and I'm gonna see if you start that buff or not. And if you're not starting that buff, we're just gonna late invade you on your red and kill you there. And you're not gonna have any trinket to like see. You're not gonna have a trinket sitting outside your buff to see like us coming in. So this makes it to where there's almost no defense against delayed invades unless your support starts with a ward. Um, yeah, so I think you're gonna see a lot more level 1s with this. I mean, it's probably not gonna affect solo queue that much because fuck, people don't even use their trinkets half the time anyways. Like, it's so dumb. But I think it will definitely be a big change to competitive play, and it will change the way level 1s are handled in competitive play. Alright, the Wriggles change. I am like, I don't know, I just hate this item. Like, I just look at this item, I look at the changes on it, I'm like, what the hell are you doing with this item? I'm gonna go ahead and skip over the Madger's Razor change, because, like, of course, all that really matters is the Wriggles change. Like, yes, they added attack speed to it, and yes, they removed armor, but who cares about Madger's Razor? Like, everybody cares about the in-game item that gives you the gold and what you're building it into. So, I think if your goal is to farm efficiently while ganking with Wriggles Lantern with these changes, you'll probably make similar gold to the Ancient Golem items and things like that, if that's what you're worried about. But my thing is what does this Wriggles item, Lantern item, give me mid and late game that a Ancient Golem or the Elder Lizard does not give me? Because Ancient Golem right now is such a fucking good item. It gives tenacity, CDR, and a ton of health. Wriggles does not give CDR, does not give tenacity, does not give health, and it doesn't even give that much damage on top of it. If I want to go damage, guess what I'm going to go? I'm going to go Elder Lizard. Elder Lizard just gives more damage, and I like the mechanic of conservation better than I like the mechanic of Wriggles Lantern. Yes, Wriggles Lantern costs less, and yes, Wriggles Lantern is going to give you the stealth ward. That's pretty nice, I guess, but who am I going to build this item on? It's an attack speed AD item. Like, what junglers are played? I actually want to go over this right now. I want to look at this. What popular jungles are played right now where I would benefit from attack speed and AD? I mean, there's Udyr, Phoenix Dance Udyr, or maybe even Tiger if that's what you want to go with. Maybe Shyvana. Like, that's not even a very popular jungle either. There's just not that many champions. Like, there's Nocturne, but who even plays him? And like, I'd rather build an Ancient Golem or an Elder Lizard on him. There's Vi. She benefits a little bit from attack speed, but once again, I would still rather get an Ancient Golem or an Elder Lizard. I think the real problem with Wriggles Lantern is it needs to be a better mid and late game item. Because as it stands right now, yes, it's an early game item, but it just doesn't stack up mid and late game. It's a wasted item slot, and I'm going to eventually have to sell that. Whereas Ancient Golem, that item is going to be good at all points in the game. Like, I'm never going to be like, damn, I wish I didn't have this tenacity. Like, that 10% CDR, hate it. Like, damn, this thing gives a lot of health. It's just, the other items you can buy are way too good in comparison to Wriggles Lantern. And do I think the changes need to be made to the other items and nerf them? No, I don't think that's the route to go with it. I think what needs to happen is Wriggles needs to build in. Wriggles just needs to be a better item overall. It needs to be a mid and late game item. Like, put armor pen on it or something like that. Put CDR, like, put things like that. Make it be a real item rather than this. Like, if I'm sitting here, I have 12 AD and 30% attack speed. I'm not like, damn, I can like fuck up anybody. Like, that's never how I feel with the Wriggles Lantern. But with like an Elder Lizard, I'm like, all right, like I got 30 AD right here. If I'm running somebody like Pantheon, I can fuck somebody up. So yeah, Wriggles Lantern just doesn't feel good as an item. Teleport, they changed it to where now it's lower cooldown if you TP to turrets, and then it's higher cooldown if you cancel it. So they want TP to be, I guess, more of a defensive item. but still be able to use it as an aggressive playmaking tool. I think one thing that'll be better with TP is when you push up the lane really early and then port back to base and then just TP back to the turret, because it'll only be a 200-second cooldown, so that's going to be pretty nice. And then, of course, some Twisted Tree Line changes. I don't really play that, so I can't comment. And Crystal Scar changes. So, yep, that's pretty much it for the patch rundown. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And, yeah, the patch rundowns are now brought to you by Absolute LoJack. So if you're worried about keeping your computer safe or recovering it, or tablet or your phone or anything like that, feel free to check them out. And yeah, I'll do another patch rundown when it comes out. Thanks for watching, guys, and if you have any comments or thoughts on it, because I do like make mistakes in a lot of these patch rundowns, and like I always read them like, Saint, you like didn't read that it actually turns your person into Teemo. I'm like, oh, I didn't see that in the patch note. Like, I try to read them beforehand, but yeah, if you guys have any like comments on the video, don't feel free to comment below, and I'll like read it and like try to fix it next time, or like comment back on it. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. That's the end of the patch notes.